Hello there. It's a really pleasure to me to be with you all. Thanks a lot to organizers and hosts in this event. So, I'm going to share my screen with you for starting this lecture. Well, let's start. My name is Carlos David Martínez Ramírez. I am from Colombia, Servicio Nacional de Aprendizaje SENA. We're, we're going to talk about psychological dimensions of teachers using learning. There is a need to study learning as a complex psychological phenomenon that involves factors, processes, and mechanisms. Although this knowledge, few efforts have been made to examine psychological dimensions of teachers using learning. This exclusion could be explained considering there's a wide educational tendency that focuses on learning rather than teaching. However, studying psychological dimensions of teachers may lead relevant research to improve e-learning process. Even though there's a lot of difference between e-learning and traditional teaching learning, certainly there are many recurrent issues involved in both, as pedagogy, curriculum, assessment, motivation, perception, intelligence, memory, cognition, behavior, among others. For taking a background, the elite collected 50 principles that were administered to 32 students, teachers at a postgraduate level, and they were asked to rate the application of the principles in learning. Results have shown that some principles are used almost as compared to others in learning. Some of those in this research were self-learning, problem solving, known to known, shining, simple to complex, work, and rest. For the Latin American case, the level of autonomy required by students for the development of educational process in virtual learning environments is frequently discussed. In this scenario, the study habits required to guarantee adequate adaptation by students to the use of virtual platforms or learning management systems are often questioned. Some psychological variables relevant to the performance analysis of teachers and students are sensation and perception. But obviously, those are not the only psychological variables whose research is relevant. In the case of teachers, it's interesting to investigate aspects related to ergonomics, visual fatigue, postural hygiene, job satisfaction, self-efficacy, attention, memory, cognitive process in general, and constructs such as intelligence, skills, and competence. In order to gain a framework for making useful research in this field, it's important to consider relevant things with the performance of teachers. So let's talk about this performance-based perspective. We will consider different roles of teachers in e-learning, especially because the huge variety of resources and formats in e-learning activities, various technologies, various forms, and various components. A possible explanation to the scope of the performance of teachers could be that most of the issues related are set by university or educational institutions' policies. Some policies underline a manager information role, while others focus on the skills for writing instructions or making attractive a virtual environment, among others. Here, we must figure out teachers with different kind of roles: text producers, instructors, designers, software developers, information or knowledge managers, technologies researchers, researching advisors, massive evaluators, video and media producers, internet, and web experts. The competence-based education models have a strong background in assessment in organizational context, especially in recruitment, also in education in the last decades. A common theological strategy in management with teachers using e-learning is to consider hard skills and soft skills. In a management field, more specifically of educational administration, protocols or checklists are usually structured for the management and control of virtual learning environments. Each educational institute, according to its own policies, establishes guidelines for workload, response times, information quality, methods, pedagogical practice, evaluation, assessment, curricular design, and so on. In this field, it's possible to point out some emerging lines of research, psychological variables to determine the load and evaluation or assessment of teachers' work using e-learning, cognition, cognitive dispersion, memory, attention, attention to detail, fatigue, ergonomics, perception of control, job satisfaction, among others. Development of interdisciplinary teams for the curricular design, development, and evaluation of educational projects using learning. You can say team building if you want. Organizational behavior, structure, design, and organizational management for the development of e-learning process with interdisciplinary teams. Metacognition and meta-operations in a learning process. Soft skills and multiculturalism in the development of a learner. Well, it's important to talk here about the knowledge management perspective. Nowadays, Eliot's sentence is relevant. Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? In an epistemological sense, knowledge management and competence based education have been criticized for avoiding concepts as wisdom and comprehension. Information transmission used to be associated with a limited structure for educational process. Knowledge management can be assimilated as a sophistication of the management vision within the educational process, with the risk of promoting a sort of operationalism that blurs the search for truth and the quality of education. For example, if we focus its places on survival or economical survival and, for example, the making of patents, instead of accent- accentuating the search of true or human process that enrich the experience through learning. Well, some lines of research in this field are the following: administrative policies and guidelines for knowledge management, ontology and epistemology in process of learning, knowledge management and educational quality using learning, and quality of teaching learning assessment with learning. Well, it's important to talk about an architecture-based perspective. Only learning is delivered on digital devices, but different courses reflect different assumptions of e-learning. Clark and Mayer presents three architectures: receptive architectures based on an information acquisition view, directive architectures based on a response strengthening view, and guided discovery architectures based on a knowledge construction view. A guided discovery architecture mainly teachers thinking about critical discipline, epistemological, and research aspects for effective learning. Even though receptive architectures allow us to understand teachers as givers or information sharers. That has a lot of the spirit of internet and social media. There is no need of perceiving a lower level in the experience with each architect. But certainly there are different use and Krakenmeyer underline different levels of behavioral engagement. In receptive architectures, a low level, in directed, a medium level, and in guided discovery, a high level. There's a need of studying how teachers masters learning management systems and e-learning resources, and at the same time, their discipline and scientific knowledge that allow them to design and develop a guided discovery architecture, or any other kind, taking care of theoretical issues and technological matters for a meaningful learning. With this background, an important question has to do with how teachers contribute to the structuring of architectures, platforms, and systems of learning management system, from curriculum design and development, from their pedagogical practices, and from assessment activities. In this sense, the quality of educational process in e-learning should not be judged with the unique criteria of the design of architectures, learning management systems, or digital platforms. That is, an attractive graphic design, in sensorial terms, does not guarantee every time a guided discovery architecture based on a perspective of knowledge construction. Well, taking into account these fields, some lines of research that are gaining relevance are sensation and perception applied to interaction in virtual learning environments, design of architectures, platforms, learning management systems, and quality of education, instructional design and digital production in virtual learning environments, nutrients in learning in virtual environments, and measuring instruments for the adaptation of interactions in virtual learning environments, like BioBitFAC, retina readers, aerosol measurement, among others. Well, for conclusions and discussion, several writers consider e-learning in the context of history of human learning and define it as the third learning system that uses various electronic techniques as its primary medium for learning. This historical approach has the risk of supposing that new things are better all the time. In this way, the use of various techniques is not enough to grant quality educational process. On the other hand, there are critical postures on learning that question the lack of personalization in educational process or the imperative need for students to be autonomous enough or have study habits that allow them to adapt themselves to this kind of scenarios. In some research on e-learning, there are interesting approach to psychological phenomena, mainly analyzing dimensions observed in students. However, studying psychological dimensions in teachers can lead the development of relevant research to improve the quality of e-learning. Focusing on the performance of teachers allow us to reflect on the administration or management of institutional policies, the type of competence that a society prefers, and the impact of using technologies rather than making efforts to develop conceptual, theoretical, or epistemological skills. The need to develop digital skills and for the use of information and communication technologies in teachers may raise questions about the probability of giving priority to graphic, audiovisual, or platform production over theoretical, epistemological, or related aspects of the knowledge of each discipline. Different education models, as knowledge management and competence based education, have been criticized for avoiding concepts as wisdom and comprehension. There's a need to guess to figure out if information transmission is associated with a limited structure for educational process, and how to incorporate wisdom and comprehension in the agendas of those in charge to set policies in education. There's a need of studying how teachers master learning management systems and electronic learning resources, and at the same time, their discipline and scientific knowledge for a meaningful learning. Then, it's important to discuss about ontological and epistemological matters, and of course, psychological matters too in e-learning, the nature of knowledge, the scope of technological resources for knowledge management, and the relation between a virtual teacher and a virtual learning, and the lack of identity involved in that process. Well, thanks a lot for allowing me to be with you. It had been a really pleasure. I want to say thanks again to hosts and organizers in this event, and I want to um, hope you have a great time there. So take care.